Hello everyone, this video will cover Module 2. So Module 2 is our primary module for fiction. So we had an introduction to fiction in the previous module, and now you will get into a lot of the chapters that are just about different aspects of fiction writing. So characters, different types of characters, point of view, that kind of thing. You have a couple of writing assignments that you'll complete and then a quiz. So we still haven't gotten to any of the major assignments in the class, major exams, major essays, that kind of thing. That will come next. So just so you're kind of prepared, Module 3 is going to have some heavier assignments in it. So you can see that the main thing that you're doing is reading. It's a lot of reading in this chapter. I highly recommend breaking it down. I've got the different chapters linked so you can kind of keep track of which one you looked at, and you just go through each one separately if you need to. Like I said, with that ebook option, you can always have that read out loud to you, and it's nice because you can make notes and things like that. So we're here in part 2 about over fiction, and we've looked at chapter 6, which is the overview. The understanding fiction covered some of these terms, just kind of in general, and now you're going to go into depth about each one. So you'll notice that the chapter itself is usually not terribly long. It's going to just go over a few things to understand about characters, for example, like different types of characters. And then when you look in, this is important, when you look in the readings, there are quite a few examples in each chapter. So you can see we've got what, 4 different short stories in this chapter about character that are specific to character. So there's a reason why they put them in the character chapter. You do not have to read all of those. So under the readings, it will tell you which of the short stories I want you to read. And you can see that there is a little bit of variety. Our textbook, unfortunately, just does not include a ton of variety in different types of short stories, but you'll notice that a lot of them are ones that you probably read before. So like The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, a lot of students have read that one. So anyway, you don't have to read every single short story unless you want to for each chapter. Just mostly covering like different types of the aspects and that kind of thing, so you can have a better understanding when you get to the quiz. So the quiz covers all of those chapters as well as the readings that are assigned to you, and you can see it's 20 points. So you're just going to have a couple of questions about each aspect of fiction, and so you take it more than once, you'll probably get more than one question, different types of questions. The other 2 things that you'll do in the module then are 2 writing assignments. One of them is collaborative. It is the Fiction Symbols Discussion Board. And then one of them is individual, and that's our Cultural Identity Journal. So the Cultural Identity Journal is in this class specifically because we have this outcome that asks students to demonstrate an awareness of the complexity and diversity of human experience. So part of that is understanding that every author comes from someplace. They have some kind of background to either where they were born or how they were raised, or what gender they are, or what race they are, what nationality, what kind of background they have, how they identify, that kind of thing. So what I've done is just pulled out some short stories that really show how an author relies on their own personal identity, culture, race, etc., in order to create their stories. And you'll be able to tell they're not autobiographical stories, but you can see how a lot of these authors, depending on where they come from, it might be that particular story is set in the country that they were born in or something like that. And so they will rely somewhat on their own identity to create these fictional stories. So your task is to choose some of these short stories. You're going to do 4. So you have these to choose from, and you'll do 4. And for each of the short story, you're going to break down kind of what you see as the theme overall, and then really just looking at how does the author deal with cultural identity. I'm not interested in a summary of the story or your personal experience. I'm interested in what you notice the author using, how they are working with or showing or representing culture, racism, sexism, personal identity, any of that. If you can see, some of your stories will have some autobiographical information about the author, so you can maybe infer some things, where they were born, that kind of thing. So you can add that in. But that's really, it's all personal response. So there's really not a wrong answer. The only issue would be if you're just telling me what the story is about rather than analyzing that use of cultural identity. So that's the main part of the essay, or of the assignment. It's just a journal assignment. So just label the 4 entries that you do in a Word document, title it, with the title and the author, and then write your paragraph under each one. So, good sized paragraph for each one. There's a page here that just gives you more on how cultural identity can be seen, how it can be used in literature, that kind of thing. So that might help you. Those are additional resources. They're not required, but some students like to look at them just to kind of help them out with what they should be thinking of. And then I do have another page on studying symbols. The stuff in the chapter works really well too, but if you're interested in more about like how to find symbols in short stories or what could be considered a symbol, then you have that page as well. So there's quite a few resources in the class for you to use if you want. And then the last writing assignment is this fiction symbols discussion board. So we're doing a lot in these modules. As I've said in the first video, we have a condensed class, so we're really doing 2 modules worth of work. So in this case, we're doing 2 writing assignments. We've got this discussion board, preferably using stories that you did not use for the cultural identity journal. There's a lot of different works in our book. And then if you are, each chapter has quite a few listed. And then there's also chapter 16, fiction for further reading. There are a bunch of stories there as well. And so you're welcome to use any of those. But you're going to pick 2 stories and you're going to make 2 separate posts discussing mainly the symbols that you see. And anything really could be a symbol in a story, but you have to be careful of identifying what's a symbol versus just an element in the story that is just there, to add detail or color. So if there's a rocking chair in the story, it may not mean anything unless the character is, say, female and is missing a child or is having like empty nest syndrome or something like that. And is kind of fixated on children. Then that rocking chair may represent either the character's having had a baby or inability to have a baby or something like that. So that's the kind of thing you want to look for, is something that has meaning to the theme or meaning to the character. Again, not really any wrong answers, because we can find symbols in different ways and we can see different meanings for them. So there's not necessarily a right answer, but you do want to make sure that you're focusing on what you can interpret within the story, and then you'll respond to 2 of your peers and just kind of, agree or disagree, add an additional symbol, that kind of thing. So for this discussion board, you want to get in here pretty early to save your story and to get your first post written. Now I wrote a little note for the first discussion board for this class. It's a very small class, so if you ever get to the point where you're like at the end of the week and you want to get this done and nobody else has posted, send me an email. I can always have, go in as my student self and create some posts for you so that you can get those responses done. So just kind of keep that in mind, that is an option since it's such a small class. Sometimes it's difficult to wait on people. So those are the assignments for the module. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, have a great week.